In Hollywood, a famous last name is a key that unlocks any door. It grants you access, whispers your name in important rooms, and rolls out a red carpet paved with the successes of those who came before you. In professional wrestling, a famous last name is a target painted on your back. It invites skepticism, demands an impossible standard, and ensures that every failure is magnified under the harshest lights. Arissa LeBrock was born with the key, a birthright from an action hero father and a supermodel mother. But in a decision that baffled the world she came from, she chose to wear the target. This is the story of why a woman who had it all chose to trade a life of luxury for the punishing, unforgiving world of the squared circle, and how the brutal setback that nearly ended her dream was the very thing that forced her to truly begin. Section 1. The weight of a Hollywood crown. In the universe of professional wrestling, lineage is a sacred text. Names like Hart, Rhodes, Flair, and Inoue are dynasties, royal families whose crests were forged in championship gold and sealed with sweat and blood. They evoke images of sold-out arenas, of fathers and sons holding titles aloft, of a legacy passed down through generations of grueling travel and physical sacrifice. But what happens when your legacy isn't from the hallowed halls of the NWA or the global stage of WrestleMania, but from the sound stages of Hollywood and the covers of fashion magazines? What happens when your father is a bone-snapping action legend and your mother is the literal dream girl of the 1980s? This is the complicated gilded cage that Arissa LeBrock was born into, a world where the shadow of her parents loomed so large it threatened to eclipse her own identity long before she ever considered stepping into a wrestling ring. To understand Arissa's journey, you must first understand the colossal figures who shaped her world. Her father is Steven Seagal. In the late 80s and early 90s, Seagal was not merely an actor. He was a cultural phenomenon. A legitimate 7th black belt in Aikido, he exploded onto the silver screen with a stoic intensity and a style of martial arts that felt terrifyingly authentic. Movies like Above the Law, Hard to Kill, and the blockbuster Under Siege cemented his status as a top-tier action hero. He was the quiet, ponytailed dispenser of brutal, efficient justice. His on-screen persona was so intertwined with his real-life martial arts mastery that the line between the character and the man blurred, creating a mythic figure who was both a movie star and a lethal weapon. Her mother, Kelly LeBrock, was an icon of a completely different yet equally potent fantasy. If Seagal was the embodiment of hard-edged masculine action, Kelly was the epitome of feminine allure and screen magic. As the star of John Hughes's Weird Science, she was, quite literally, the perfect woman, a goddess brought to life by two nerdy teenagers. Her unforgettable line, "So what would you little maniacs like to do first?" became a defining piece of 80s pop culture. That role, combined with her stunning debut in The Woman in Red, made her one of the most recognizable and desired actresses of her generation. Their marriage in 1987 was a collision of Hollywood's most powerful archetypes, the untouchable action hero and the ultimate screen siren. Arissa LeBrock was born into this whirlwind of fame, flashbulbs and tabloid headlines in July 1993, but if you're picturing a childhood of red carpet premieres and Hollywood parties, you'd be profoundly mistaken. Following her parents' high-profile and tumultuous divorce in 1996, her mother made a life-altering decision. Kelly LeBrock, at the height of her fame, walked away from it all. She moved her children to a remote ranch in the Santa Ynez Valley in Southern California, deliberately choosing to raise them far from the toxic glare of the limelight. As Kelly herself explained, she could always go back to her career, but she could never go back to her children's formative years. This upbringing gave Arissa a foundation of normalcy that would prove invaluable. Life on the ranch was about chores, not charity galas, about hard work, not headshots. It instilled in her a sense of perseverance and a grounding that was the complete opposite of the Hollywood bubble. She credits her mother's constant encouragement as the source of her never give up attitude. Yet the shadow of a famous name is inescapable. It follows you, shaping people's perceptions before you even speak. The question of identity haunts every child of celebrity. Are you your own person, or are you merely a reflection of your parents' accomplishments? For Arissa, the first step in answering that question wasn't in a wrestling ring, but on a fashion runway. Following in her mother's footsteps, but determined to carve her own niche, Arissa became a successful plus-size model. This was more than just a career choice. It was a declaration of independence. In an industry notorious for its impossibly rigid and narrow standards of beauty, Arissa championed body positivity and radical self-acceptance. She became a prominent face in the movement. Her journey documented on the 2017 Lifetime reality series Growing Up Supermodel. The show highlighted her navigation of the fashion world, but also laid bare the complex dynamics of her famous family and her struggle to be seen for who she was. Not whose daughter she was, but beneath the glamour of photo shoots and the message of empowerment, a different, far grittier passion was taking root. While the world saw a model, Arissa was quietly dedicating herself to the grueling, humbling discipline of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. BJJ, the gentle art, is a combat sport predicated on leverage, grappling, and forcing an opponent into submission. It is as raw and unglamorous as it gets. The mat is a place of absolute honesty. It doesn't care about your name, your looks, or your bank account. It only cares about your skill, your technique, and your will to win. This wasn't a casual hobby. Arissa trained with a fierce dedication, earning real proficiency in a martial art that demands thousands of hours of practice. In this pursuit, you can see the first threads of the professional wrestler she would become. The discipline, the physical toll, the one-on-one competition. It was a world away from modeling, yet it was a world where she was judged solely on her merit. She had already established her own identity in one demanding industry. But another, even more punishing world was calling her name, one that combined the theatrical performance of Hollywood with the raw, unyielding combat of a BJJ mat. Section 2. The dream, the disaster, and the darkness for most people. A successful modeling career and a Hollywood pedigree would be the entire story. For Arissa LeBrock, it was merely the prologue. The discipline she had honed on the BJJ mats had ignited a fire for a different kind of competition, a different form of storytelling. That fire led her down a path so unexpected it seemed to come from a different life entirely. The squared circle of professional wrestling. In December 2019, the wrestling world began to buzz with the most unlikely of headlines. Arissa LeBrock, the model daughter of Steven Seagal and Kelly LeBrock, had been invited to a multi-day tryout at the WWA Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. For wrestling aficionados, the WWEPC is the modern-day factory of dreams, the state-of-the-art facility where the next generation of global superstars are forged. A tryout is a crucible, a grueling ordeal designed to push athletes to their absolute physical and psychological limits. The drills are notoriously brutal. Hours of punishing conditioning, endless in-ring exercises learning how to fall and move, and promo classes, where you must prove you can command a microphone and connect with an audience. Arissa's presence immediately made her the most high-profile attendee. The story was irresistible. Action hero's daughter wants to be a WWE superstar. But within the insulated world of wrestling, skepticism was rampant. Was this a genuine passion or just a celebrity dabbling in a new field for attention? Countless athletes with more conventional backgrounds had failed to make the cut. What chance did a model from Beverly Hills have? Arissa wasn't there on a whim. Her extensive BJJ background gave her a legitimate athletic foundation that many prospects lack. It provided her with body awareness, toughness, and a credible combat base. This was her shot to prove to the biggest wrestling company in the world that she belonged, that she was more than just a famous name. She was ready to embrace the grind and prove every single doubter wrong. And then, in an instant, disaster struck. The exact details of what happened have been kept private, but the outcome was catastrophic. A severe injury sustained during or shortly after the tryout brought her wrestling ambitions to a screeching, heartbreaking halt. Imagine the crushing weight of that moment. You have made the life-altering decision to chase an impossible dream. You have put yourself through the most demanding physical test of your life, standing on the precipice of a new beginning. And then your own body betrays you. The dream is snatched away, not because you lack the talent or the heart, but because of a catastrophic physical failure. This was not a minor sprain or a pulled muscle. It was a major, career-threatening injury, serious enough to completely derail her journey. The world had been watching to see if Steven Seagal's daughter had what it takes. What they saw, instead, was her dream seemingly dying before it had even truly begun. The years that followed were, by her own candid admission, a descent into a dark and difficult place. The physical recovery from a serious injury is a painful, arduous battle, but the psychological recovery can be infinitely more challenging. It is a period filled with doubt, with frustration, and with the haunting, ever-present question of what if. It was during this time that Arissa felt she had hit rock bottom. In a moment of incredible vulnerability, she would later share a powerful and chilling insight into her mindset. I realized that I had become comfortable in the darkest, worst place in my life. Think about the profound meaning of that statement. It is one thing to find yourself in a dark place. It is another thing entirely to get comfortable there. It signifies a surrender, an acceptance of defeat. It suggests the dream had not just been deferred, but buried. The fire that had driven her from the runway to the ring had been reduced to faint, dying embers. To the outside world, the Arissa LeBrock wrestling experiment was a forgotten headline, a brief and failed curiosity. For many, this would have been the definitive, tragic end of the story. But deep within that darkness, a single ember was still glowing, waiting for the right person to fan it back into a roaring flame. Section 3. The lifeline and the rebirth. Every great comeback story has a turning point, a single moment where hope pierces through the suffocating veil of despair. For Arissa LeBrock, that moment didn't come from a doctor's good report or a sudden epiphany. It came in the form of a phone call. On the other end of the line was a man who understands legacy, pressure, pain, and reinvention better than almost anyone alive. Dustin Rhodes. That phone call didn't just offer an opportunity. It offered a lifeline. If you don't know Dustin Rhodes, you don't know the soul of professional wrestling. As the son of the beloved, iconic American Dream Dusty Rhodes, he was born into the business and has lived his entire life with the immense pressure of a famous last name. But Dustin is a towering legend in his own right. For decades in WWE, he was the bizarre, androgynous, and unforgettable Goldust, a character so audacious and ahead of its time that it remains one of the most compelling creations in wrestling history. Now a veteran performer, respected coach, and a foundational piece of All Elite Wrestling (AEW), Dustin has earned universal reverence for his incredible longevity, his masterful in-ring psychology, and his brilliant wrestling mind. When Dustin reached out to Arissa, he saw past the injury, past the celebrity parents, past the failed tryout. He saw an athlete with untapped potential and a story that was far from over. He offered her a second chance, a true chance, an invitation to move to Texas and train at his school, the Rhodes Wrestling Academy. For Arissa, that call was the catalyst she desperately needed. It was the jolt that shook her from her comfortable darkness. She later described the impact of that moment. When I got the call from Dustin, I realized that I had become comfortable in the darkest, worst place in my life. It was time for me to give every ounce of passion within me to professional wrestling. The Rhodes Wrestling Academy is a world away from the polished, corporate environment of the WWE Performance Center. It's a place built on old-school principles, hard work, fundamental skills, respect for the craft, and a deep understanding of ring psychology. It's a dojo in the truest sense. Here, Arissa wasn't just a number in a mass tryout. She was a dedicated student under the direct guidance of a master. She worked with personal trainers to methodically rebuild her body, getting her ducks in a row, as Dustin put it, ensuring she was physically and mentally prepared for the rigors of the ring. Under Rhodes's mentorship, she began the meticulous process of truly becoming a wrestler. Her BJJ background was no longer just an interesting footnote on a resume. It became the bedrock of her entire in-ring style. Dustin taught her how to translate her knowledge of grappling, submissions, and leverage into the unique language of Professional wrestling? She learned how to blend her legitimate combat skills with the showmanship and storytelling that defines the art form. Dustin Rhodes praised her relentless work ethic and her rapid progress, stating, "She's doing a great job, but this is only the beginning for her." After months of grueling, transformative training, her moment of truth arrived. In March 2023, Arissa LeBrock graduated from the Rhodes Wrestling Academy and competed in its student showcase, her official, public in-ring debut. It wasn't in a massive arena under the glare of television lights. It was in an intimate setting, in front of a small crowd of people who understood the blood, sweat, and tears that had gone into that single moment. As she stepped through the ropes, she wasn't the daughter of a celebrity or a failed prospect. She had overcome the devastating injury, the crushing self-doubt, and the suffocating darkness. She was finally and unequivocally a professional wrestler. Since that debut, Arissa's journey has been one of steady, deliberate growth on the independent circuit. This is where wrestlers truly pay their dues. It's a world of long car rides for little pay, of performing in high school gyms and local halls for small but passionate crowds. It's where you learn your craft, working with different opponents, honing your timing, and finding your voice as a performer. Every match is a lesson, every town a new test. She is building her career the right way, earning her stripes one match at a time, commanding respect through her skill rather than relying on her name. The setback that once seemed like a tragic ending was actually a necessary, character-forging detour. Conclusion: a legacy redefined. Arissa LeBrock's story is a powerful modern-day lesson in resilience. She entered the public eye carrying the immense weight of two iconic names, a Hollywood shadow that could have easily defined her entire existence. She first stepped out of it on her own terms, becoming a model who championed a message of self-love. But it was her audacious, seemingly reckless leap into the world of professional wrestling that truly began the process of forging her own unique legacy. Her path was anything but glamorous. It was marked by a dream-crushing injury and a period of profound personal struggle that would have permanently broken a lesser person. Yet, she refused to let her story end in that darkness. Guided by a wrestling legend who understood her burden, she rebuilt herself from the ground up, trading the comfort of her old life for the sweat, sacrifice, and pain of the wrestling mat. She has transformed herself from Steven Seagal's daughter into Arissa LeBrock, the professional wrestler. She has proven that a famous name isn't a free pass. Sometimes it's a heavier burden to carry. Arissa LeBrock isn't just carrying her family's name anymore. She is actively redefining it in her own image with her own grit. The question is no longer if she belongs in a wrestling ring, but where she will ultimately make her mark. And that leaves us with one final tantalizing question. With her unique look, her legitimate combat skill set, and her growing experience, where does Arissa LeBrock's journey take her next? Will she find her way back to the global stage of WWE to finish the story that began at that fateful tryout and conquer the mountain that once rejected her? Or will she join her mentor Dustin Rhodes in the ranks of AEW to build a new empire in the company that gave her a second chance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Empire in the company that gave her a second chance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.